Folks.
Good evening. Good evening.
Good evening.
Everybody okay?
I'm very well. Sandy, how are you?
Oh, yeah, not too bad at all tonight. Thanks. Actually, get a nice wee fire on here, keeping me nice and cozy.
Good. Mr. Dallas, obviously you'll be very cozy, I would imagine.
Well, can I just say, if you have a mental image of where you would want to drink whiskey, it's right where Sandy's sitting right now. That looks fantastic.
I was just going to say that, Gordon. I thought you were going to steal it and say it's in your sauna.
No.
I was going to say, no. It's got to be up here at Tamdhu.
No, absolutely. It's looking. So that's looking fabulous, Sandy. Have you been decorating?
Oh, I wish. I wish my house was like this. This is the new facility we've got here at Tamdhu. It's the old exciseman's house. It's renamed it as one of the houses we've got on site. We've renamed it Customs House. And we've just gone through a refurbishment of the house here. So it's going to be used for some special guests, hopefully, in the future when things brighten up and things get better in this wider world that we're in at the moment.
Well, yeah, let's hope that happens sooner rather than later for sure. Absolutely. And Mr. Dallas, what have you been? How's life with you?
Well, I have to announce, boys, I haven't told you this, but October the 15th, and welcome to all who's watching. I was actually meant to be in Spain tonight. And of course, we're talking about Spain to Speyside with Tamdhu. How good. I'm so gutted. I would have been on my balcony last night toasting you all with this lovely Tamdhu. So I'm sorry that's not happening for obvious reasons, but it's still in the back of my mind. I could have been there. But however, that's the way it is.
It's a wee bit like the old bullseye, isn't it, in the television? Here's what you could have won.
Absolutely. Well, instead you've got an evening with us, so that's fine, and great whiskey. I was going
to take it across. The whole idea was to do it from the balcony or apartment in Spain to Speyside. The whole purpose of being here tonight. That would have been the story. So
yeah.
That would have been a cracker, actually. Yeah,
it would have been.
I would have been jealous of you in that situation, then, actually, rather than
yeah. We would have all been jealous of you. Well, just to give everybody.
Where are you this evening?
I'm sitting in my house in the most exciting backdrop of them all.
I was just really say, obviously, you've not been decorating.
No, my house is. I'm basically sitting at my kitchen table, and I've got a wall behind me, so it's fine. It's let the whiskey do all the talking. I'm just.
Were you meant to be away anywhere at the moment?
Well, I mean, obviously, with my life, if you look back a year ago, it's quite interesting, Sandy. If you look back a year ago, I was traveling. I actually did a complete loop of the world this time last year. So, and I was in in San Francisco
last year.
Just a wee bit earlier than this. Then I was in China doing Tamdhu stuff in China, and then I actually came all the way to San Francisco and did some stuff in San Francisco for Glengoyne and Tamdhu. So yeah, we this shows you how my life has changed, but everybody's life has changed. So we just have to get on and deal with it. So that's it.
The folk out there in the wider world, does anybody get any ideas, where we've got people joining us from tonight? Yes,
well, I mean, I'm just having a look at that, and I know we're keeping an eye on it. So I'd love anybody to tell us where they're coming. But we've got. I'll shout out a few names you'll know. We've got Guy Dutton and Vic Cameron's back in. Hi, Vic. How are you? We've also got Bjorna from Norway, and a lady we all know very well, Michelle Lynn from Taipei.
Michelle, how are you?
Hi, Michelle. How are you? There's Joe Lawson from Gloucestershire, Yvonne Granger from Glasgow, and Lou Mack from Glasgow, sunny Glasgow West End.
Oh, so optimistic. So optimistic. Yeah.
I was just going to say that.
Yeah. I know.
There's so many. I'll try and keep a hold of comments coming in and fire it to you guys. If anybody out there wants to fire some comments about the whiskies you're tasting or about Tamdhu in general, I'll try and funnel them to you guys.
Thanks, Gordon.
Okay. So, well, I mean, the first thing to say, Sandy, that tonight this is a first. This is the first time we have ever at Tamdhu sent out any samples before. We've never done a little box of tastings. We've always done stuff just as we are. But this time, because of the new release of the Batch Strength 5, we wanted to send out some cases and some of these lovely things to people who so all these wonderful people who got some of these out there are going to learn about Tamdhu and obviously sample the sample the 3 whiskies that we're going to, and we really want everybody's opinion on the whiskies. We really want to feed
everybody's opinion on the packaging and this tasting kit, because as Gordon says, it is the first time we've done it. We've been asked for it, numerous times. Rightly so, Gordon. It is a first for us, so we're keen to hear people's feedback. That's for sure. That's part of it.
Absolutely. And there's obviously some great Tamdhu fans out there, but there'll be people who hopefully are new to Tamdhu, and so we've got people coming in from Germany, Michael Hoffman, Christer from Sweden as well. Sorry, I'm just noticing them as well. So
great. No.
we felt that with the fact we've got launching Batch Strength 5, it was a great opportunity to actually just go through the 3 core range whiskies that we have.
Exactly that.
And I think that's really the focus for the evening, is just to give people a refresher on how it changes as you go through those 3 expressions. But of course, as we know, we have that DNA of sherry cask matured, isn't that right?
But yeah, I think that's what we'll see with the expressions we're doing tonight, though, Gordon, is that, and I've said it before, so I'm going to repeat myself with that, is that people think sherry is one-dimensional.
Yeah.
But I think what we've got for you tonight with these 3 samples and 3 expressions is that it clearly shows you that no, it's not. We've got different taste profiles in there completely. Obviously, different age and the non-age with the batch strength as well. Which again, we always try and do something different with the batch strength releases too. We've had feedback in the past. Maybe one batch is, some people prefer one batch better than others.
Yeah,
perfectly understandable. I've got, and I know the question will come in. What's your preference, Sandy? Which one did you prefer the most?
Exactly.
I'm sure that'll come in later on, if not even already. But we've got to try and make it a wee bit different as well. So it's not always just the same thing we're churning out every time we do one of these batch strength releases. Yeah,
and the only thing that is the same is generally we're the people that you have to listen to. So that is the only downside. But it's great to have Sandy back, because Sandy, the last time you missed the last one because you weren't feeling very well.
That's right. Yeah, it was a wee bit of a funny time for me, especially during obviously all the lockdown, etc. that was going on in the UK at the time. But unfortunately, I missed that. I was in hospital having my appendix removed. And I didn't realise an appendix that's only maybe about this size weighs about 8 kilograms, because I lost a bit of weight at the same time. So there was an advantage along the way, that's for sure. And
that's really interesting to know. Can I get my appendix removed even though I don't need to if I'm going to lose 8 kilograms?
Well, you never know.
Good try, Gordon. Just
that would be great.
Robert Hall, how you doing, Robert? Packaging is amazing. Sandy asked for some feedback on the packaging. He loves the glass as well. Chris missed out there. Sorry about that, Chris. Susan thinks it's a fabulous kit as well. Thank you, Susan Allen there. So does Gail. Says it looks great. And Lucas has said hello from Argentina. So
hey,
Lucas joined us. I was to say I wasn't on the last event, but Lucas was on the one before that, where I was round at the station and did a tour around the distillery and such like. So I remember Lucas last time around. So welcome back, Lucas. Thanks very much for coming back to us again.
He was. And there's 2 people, and the thing that's really good about this, there's 2 people that I know on this that until they drank Tamdhu, they were not sherry cask fans. And I'm going to say Vic Cameron has just said it. And Joe Lawson is another who said to me about 2 years ago, I don't drink sherry cask whiskies. And then she started drinking Tamdhu. And Joe's a big fan. So that is great.
Joe's done, and it'll be really interesting to, and Joe, give us some feedback, which I know you will, because you've done a great piece of work in the past with comparisons with the batch strengths, 1, 2, 3, 4. So it'll be interesting to hear what your thoughts are of 5.
Yeah.
And the tasting notes again. Please go ahead and update us again, because I love hearing these kind of things. I love getting the feedback, and I love we get a lot of the same people coming back to us. It's a group of friends. It feels as if I've got a group here with 30 or 40 other folk in it, which we're not allowed to do right now, and a group of friends round about us, so having a dram.
Yeah.
Can I just say, Gordon, Sandy, somebody's had more than a dram already. I suspect Fiona Weir has drank all 3 drams, because she says, "Looking good, gents." So
I know that's just mean that eyesight tested.
Yeah.
Quick word with Dominic Cummings. He knows where to go for that.
Should have gone to Specsavers for sure. So Sandy, I think before we get to our first whiskey, we could talk about sherry casks and we can talk about maturation, but there's a huge important part that goes before that, which is a major part of the process that you are in charge of. And I think if you give people a little insight, well, more than a little insight into Tamdhu, the spirit, how you produce it, why it's different. You've got vast experience. Talk us through it.
Well, let's face it, we all know the process of distilling in terms of the milling, the mashing, the fermentation, the maturation. That hasn't changed over a number of years. Obviously, there's been advancements that have come along in terms of some automation and in terms of developing different strains of yeast and looking at optimizing temperatures, etc. Tamdhu has always been renowned for producing a fruity new make spirit, and that goes way back. I'm talking way back into the sort of late 1920s or the early 1920s, actually, when Tamdhu was in its production way back then. We continue to produce that fruity new make spirit at Tamdhu. We do it by our mash tun side of things, where what we're doing in there is producing what we call clear wort. And it's an interesting thing, when I often describe it to people, I'm not talking about a liquid that's like gin or vodka with that kind of clarity. We're talking more something that's got very little suspended solids in it. And that allows our fermentation to be quite vigorous. So you lift our washback lids here, and it's, I actually had somebody in doing some filming last week for the BBC, and the guy was just overwhelmed when we lifted it. He was wanting to film that completely because it's quite vigorous, it's quite agitating, and it's impressive to see it's swishing itself out at you. And that leads us into our distillation, which, whilst obviously it's not Glengoyne, it's not the slowest distillation we've got, we do, and we don't tell people our cut points for our distillation, but we do still have quite a slow distillation process, and it produces this enhanced fruity character, together with the yeast that we use as well, which also helps us to produce that higher intensity of fruitiness as well. That matching up with the casks, the sherry casks, just, well, it's in the proof's in the pudding, the proof's in the bottle, more to the point, actually, with what we end up with in terms of our mature spirit over time.
Yeah. And you've been working at Tamdhu now for 6-7 years.
It'll be 6 years in 2 weeks' time, actually. Yeah, and it's flown by. I want to pass out some good wishes to everybody that's involved with Tamdhu, because the 6 years has flown by incredibly quickly, as far as I'm concerned. And it's been a really exciting time for the brand. We've seen massive improvements in the site in terms of the investment that the company have made. So thanks to Ian Clouds for that. But actually what delights me is when I joined the site here, we had two expressions of Tamdhu. We had the Tamdhu 10-year-old, and we had Tamdhu 10-year-old 40%, 43% for Europe. And then we had a Tamdhu limited edition bottling, the first fill 10-year-old. And we've got a shelf next door there now with all the expressions of Tamdhu that we've released now, including all the single casks, and we're up to somewhere in the region. I think it's 23 or 24 different releases that we've had, which is quite phenomenal when you start to think about that in 5 years' time, sort of thing. It's quite
and you think of where Tamdhu was, even 5 years ago, where it is now, which is, it's a little bit further down the road, but it's still got a long, long way to go, as we know, and that's the exciting thing.
We're always working on. We've already started thinking about Tamdhu Batch 6, if I'm entirely honest with you. We're looking at our next release of Dalby Alley for the Spirit Whiskey, Speyside Whiskey Festival for next year. We'll talk about that hopefully a wee bit later on. And then we've got another couple of releases that we're looking at as well. And, we're also looking at non-aged, we're looking at age statements as well. So, but it's a case of managing our stocks as well, Gordon. Bear in mind, we've only been producing in the distillery here as Ian McLeod since 2012. So we've only really seen 8 years worth of our own stock maturing in the warehouses. And, let's face it, we've continued with the philosophy that Highland or Edrington had in terms of the sherry side of things. So
no, definitely. And I think now it's time to try our first whiskey, I would say. I think you're absolutely right, is that we're going to live by our consistency of our product, and that is why we are investing. And we'll talk a bit more about the sherry cask as we go through this, but that is the Tamdhu style. That's why the investment in these casks is so important, to give us this style of whiskey, which is the benefit to the drinker at the end of the day.
To me, the people that have got the hardest job is our master blender, John Glass, and his assistant, Emma. I'll be honest with you, the production side of things looks after itself. Really. It churns away there. But in terms of actually producing the consistency in terms of the 12, the 15-year-old, and actually the work that we do in the non-aged releases as well. Yes, I'll be the first person to say that, it's me that sanctions what goes in the bottle for things like the batch strength, the alveolis, etc. However, it's John and Emma that have done that hard work in producing the spirit and setting it up to us to make sure that we're happy with it. And if we're not happy with it, we don't let it get bottled, Gordon.
No, absolutely. No, I know how, and that's exactly right. It's a team game, and it's you've got, everybody needs to be happy with it, and that's the point. So that's great. So we've got, right, everybody at home, we're opening the 12-year-old.
Here we go.
Now, was it about a year and a half ago we moved from a 10 to a 12-year-old?
Yeah, that was an interesting development. We did have a 12-year-old release in one of the high street retailers. We brought that back in the UK for our own purposes and increased the strength up to 43%. When we had the 10-year-old at 40%, 10-year-old at 43, the 10 at 43 was a phenomenal whiskey.
That was.
It was by far better than the 10 at 40. I'll be the first person to say it. In terms of my preferences anyway. And moving to this 12-year-old with our stock and actually just increasing that age for another couple of years just smooths it off even further. But Tamdhu, renowned for being a smooth whiskey, and it's just phenomenal. I'm sorry.
No, absolutely. And what I love about the 12 is it, when you hear, and this is the point we were saying, when you hear, and Gordon, we've discussed this on that brilliant podcast that we do. What's that called, Gordon?
I just top of my Whiskey Unscripted.
Oh yeah, no, that's a really good podcast. People should listen to that.
Wonderful, best whiskey podcast.
Yeah. The point is when people see sherry cask, they sometimes go, "This is just going to be bold, rich, heavy." You know what I mean? And that is not the case. Which we're going to, because of the fact of we use variations on those casks in terms of oak types and fills and things like that.
This isn't your sherry bomb.
No, absolutely not.
For a sherry bomb, no, you don't go for Tamdhu 12.
No. This is a
very mellow, smooth, easily, and I often refer to it as a session whiskey. This is a bottle of whiskey that, if there's 2 or 3 folk in the room, you can easily, and I'm not encouraging folk or suggesting folk to drop in a bottle of whiskey in an evening, but very, very simply, you can empty a bottle in an evening with 2 or 3 people.
That is fabulous. A little hint of that dark side, very fruity.
I got some honeycomb in there tonight.
Yeah, it changes all the time. I mean, I look at the tasting notes sometimes and I don't get much on it, and I get other things. Well, I just get a really caramel tone tonight. Remember that bar you used to get, the sort of chocolate caramac?
Oh yeah.
A bit of that on there tonight. A bit of that. But it's just a really, really, if you want to have a 12-year-old that actually you can drink after, it's not you wouldn't call it a light whiskey in terms of, you wouldn't, it's still a little bit more, in my view, slightly more digestive. It's a little bit more that after dinner style, but you can drink this any time of the day for sure. It's a great whiskey.
Absolutely no problem.
Oh, lovely hint of orange there. Very juicy. I find it middle of the tongue.
The finish is just so smooth and it still just bounces around your mouth.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And so just to explain to people how we make all of our Tamdhus tonight are made from effectively 2 different oak type casks. That's it, isn't it?
Yeah, very simple. I mean, if you want to put it in the most simplistic terms, yes.
Yeah, they are. They're made from either American oak or European oak, seasoned Oloroso sherry casks.
Exactly
and it's always Oloroso sherry. I noticed Joe Lawson mentioned any plans for a peated expression.
No,
I don't think so.
Genuinely,
no need.
Although Sandy, there is a wisp on. I'll never get it.
I never get it either, Gordon.
Just explain. It's meant to be a wisp of smoke in Tamdhu.
What's that about?
Yeah, if I look back, the old mashing notes and the old malt. We used to have the malting seed at Tamdhu as well. It's all in the boxes. Unfortunately, they're demolished now, and we've recovered some bits and pieces out of that as memorabilia to hopefully use round about the site as well. But when we look back, the old mashing recipes and the barley that was used, or the malted barley that was used then, as we continue to do now, it is a very, very lightly peated malt.
Yeah.
Now, again, I've said it. My experience in the industry started off in the malting, so I've still got a wee sort of part of my heart that sees that part of the business has been extremely important and actually really, really interesting as a process in itself. But the malt that we get in from our external supplier, we don't actually either nose the peat in the grain at all, nor if you bite into it, do you actually taste the peat in there at all. So we're talking parts per billion, so it's
minimal.
We often talk about it's just like passing a shovel with some peat across as it's drying. The fact you've seen some peat, that's it.
Yeah, driving past the peat bog.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On the way up the
Yeah.
road.
They hardly anything. And I used to work for peated whiskies on Islay, and the one thing I always also knew is when you talk about people talk about ppm and and firstly, peat in the north of Scotland and Speyside is usually different to Islay peat. But secondly, the one thing I was always aware of is if a whiskey is 50 ppm, that's in the barley. By the time you've distilled that, you've lost 2/3 of that.
Yeah.
So it's really and then how you mature it and all those things really makes a big difference.
Again, it doesn't come through in the new make either. So in terms of our new make, I didn't bring a bottle up with me to the house tonight. Actually, our new make is just this intense fruitiness. It's just bursting together. It's just like take the lid off and it explodes out. It's just like it's really good to the nose in itself.
And really suitable for sherry cask maturation, which is a heavier style, weightier style. Gordon, how are you getting on with the 12?
I'm loving the 12. If you hear me giggling and I'm not looking at you guys, I'm just looking at the comments coming in.
All right.
And again, Jim Taylor, who I believe Jim Taylor's obviously been at the three whiskies already as well. Says, looking good, Sandy. Nice package. Is it an 8-pack?
Oh.
None of that. The Malt Project, how are we doing out there? They've got the batch 3 at the moment, so you've got the batch 5 to enjoy at your leisure, but they're enjoying the chat. Johnny Allen has a question about the batch strength. We'll maybe come to that when we're tasting it, Johnny. Chris is asking, is there any chance they purchase this pack?
There may well be. I'm not sure. We'll come back to you on that. I want to just say I've noticed the name of a good friend of mine, Heather from Calgary, who I normally would be out in Calgary about this time of the year. Heather, I hope you're well. Really nice to see you on Slange.
Cheers.
Cheers.
A group of Canadians here about 3 years ago. In fact, you were here. You were up that time.
Yeah, that was the Willow Park crowd from. That was great. They were from Calgary.
And I remember you fell out the canoe.
I did fall out the canoe. Yes.
The canoe started to float away.
What happened to the canoe?
The canoe. Yeah, well, I mean, can I just say the Spey was? I think you would agree. The Spey was very low that year.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say something else.
And I'm quite a big chap, so the canoe didn't have much chance of staying afloat at certain points.
Uh-huh.
Well, the Spey's been a bit different this last couple of weeks. We've had intense rainfall. Again, the house I'm in here at the moment, we had some turf laid out in the garden just for the last couple of weeks, and it's just been great because I've not even had to water it at all because the rainfall we've had has been so heavy and the Spey has come up massively, which has in turn helped out with our salmon fish pass. This is the time of year that we have the returning smolts coming back to the burnout here at Nakando and making their way up our fish pass. So they have been presenting themselves at the bottom of the weir, which is quite impressive to see.
Great, good.
Before they find their way into the pass, so it's doing its job. Let's put it that way.
I'd love to come up and see that. But you must when this is all over, Sandy. I'd love to come up and see the salmon return for the first time in 100 odd years.
Absolutely fantastic.
Can I just say a couple of comments coming in about the 12? Elizabeth Falsky saying it's lovely and rounded with a hint of cinnamon and pear banana biscuits as well. It's a good shout. Goes down very easily. Jim's on it again. A session drink. A couple of people saying podcast. What podcast? I know who you two are. So we'll just move on from there. I had another question there, but a lot of lovely comments about the 12-year-olds coming in there.
And what I love about this 12 is it sets you on your sort of journey. And what I mean by that is it's the way that it's the way that the American and European oak interact with each other. And Sandy, I think you might agree with this, that if you look at a European oak and we look at our single cask, you are an American oak sherry cask fan, aren't you?
I am, yes.
Your award-winning World Whiskey Award-winning single cask of last year was an American oak, but this year Ian Whitecross's is a European oak.
Yes.
And when you look at them in a bottle, pretty much the same age, for argument's sake, I think they are pretty much the same age. Mm-hmm. Yours was considerably lighter than his. And that is the difference between the oak in terms of, firstly, colour, of course.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, all the colour that we get in our spirit only ever comes from the wood. We don't have a need to be quite honest with you.
Yeah.
We don't have a need to use artificial caramel in there to enhance the colour of any of our whiskey, whether it be the non-aged, the aged whiskies, or obviously the single casks. So there is no caramel; it's all natural colour that we're talking about, Gordon.
So when you look at the components that come together in producing all of these whiskies tonight, which are the two that we've said, American and European oak in a very general way is a bit more spicy, jaggy, sort of. It's a bit more back palate, raisins, dark chocolate, slightly bittery, tannic, dry.
It's deeper. It's it's far more chunky. There's more bite to it. There's a real intensity to it. Is that the oranges, the whole kind of fruitiness in terms of Christmas cakes, etc.
Yeah. And then when you get an American oak cask, you get much more. There's vanilla because there's vanillin in the vanilla. There's a bit more of those stewed fruits. And when you combine them together in the ratios that we do for our 12 and our 15 and whatever, what you notice is the American oak almost fills in the gaps and smooths out the whole experience. Would that be a good way of explaining it?
Yeah, that lighter element, it just softens it. It brings it back a wee bit. It just, makes it, for my palate certainly, it lightens it and just makes it more presentable to my mouth.
Yeah. And that was a question from Yvonne as well, just to see what is your preference, both of you, for the European. You've answered yours, Sandy. Gordon?
Yeah. I love both. I mean, I love Sandy's cask. I thought it was a fantastic cask. But I like Ian Whitecross's as well. But I would maybe drink them at slightly different times, and my point.
That's what I was going to say too. I mean, it's not to say that you never go near the other one, Gordon. We always say it's a mood moment. People you're with, the time of day, even the weather outside. A dark night like tonight.
Absolutely, yeah.
Dry here, but if it was a miserable night, you are wanting something that's that bit deeper anyway. You're probably going to move towards something a bit more in the European category rather than American. Whereas earlier on in the day, in the afternoon, I'll have a wee American.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's the point. A lot of people, that's and the other key thing here is, is we're not finishing. We're fully maturing from start to finish. So the oak type is crucial over 12 years, 15 years, etc. If you finish a whiskey for a year in a sherry cask, you're taking much more of the influence from the sherry that was in the wood, if you know what I mean, rather than the actual wood type. So when you're fully maturing, you're getting the real benefit of those oak types over a long period of time.
The interesting thing for us this year, obviously, is where we are again with this situation global with the COVID pandemic in terms of actually cask supply. Where we would normally be seeing a fairly regular delivery coming in from Jerez in the south of Spain, that's a bit more sporadic. So we've had a bit of a gap from sort of May time through to the middle of July or tail end of July in terms of getting sherry casks. Now, that doesn't present as a big problem. But we, and again, we always put our hands up to this. We can't afford to fill everything that we make here at Tamdhu into sherry casks. We just, I would love to. I really would love to.
Wouldn't we all? So you're what's the distillery team produce? What's the distillery output at the moment, roughly?
Well, this year again, a wee bit unusual the way the situation has been. But as it turns out, we would normally have the distillery closed at this time of year in October. We would normally be silent and doing some essential maintenance work and routine maintenance work for that point. But this year we're continuing to operate in October, where we actually had the distillery closed in March and April earlier on. So at the end of the year, we should be producing just slightly less, about 70,000 litres less than our 3 million litre target that was presented to us at the start of the year. Now, we could, if the business wanted that extra 70,000 litres, we've got a week at the end of the year, we could do it. But the business has said, no, we'll leave it. There's no point knocking your pan and working too hard, he says, laughing, and working on for that extra week. So we'll catch that next year. It's not going to be a big loss for us.
And in a normal year, and I really think this is a really interesting part of Tamdhu's sort of makeup. In a normal year, you actually work on a basis. You produce a bit more in the winter, isn't that correct, than in the summer?
Other way around.
Sorry, other way around. Yes,
generally
other way
produce a
around.
bit more over the summer, and that's down to the fuel source that we use for raising the steam. However, what I will actually add to that, well, I'll actually add and say, we work for the 6 months through from the start of April to the end of September, pretty much flat out. And then we have March and October usually silent, and then obviously silent over Christmas time as well. So effectively it's 6 months in the summer and 3.5 months the rest of the year. But throughout that time, we're still producing the same volume every week. So we're still mashing the same quantity every week.
Yeah, and as we said, I'd love to put 3 million litres into sherry casks.
No,
it's not going to happen.
No, it's not. So, again, we always put our hand up, Gordon. We've never hidden behind this. We've got Tamdhu there in bourbon casks as well.
Yeah.
And I can assure you that all of that liquid is used for our blend purposes as well. So, we've got quite an extensive facility here at Tamdhu now in terms of warehouses, in terms of disgorging facilities.
Yeah, you've unbelievable.
As well. So, we're quite a kind of integral part of the whole IMD business now in terms of tankers, etc. that we do as well.
Absolutely.
We've got lots of comments coming in, but I'm just wondering. I've just got a little thirst going on here just now. Should we?
Yeah.
Yes. Let's move on. Let's move on to whiskey number 2. I think everybody's.
I'm doing all the work here.
You are onto the 15-year-old now. This came out, I think, about 2 years ago now, nearly 2 years ago.
It's not far, but 2 years in March time.
And this was a really big thing for us because, as Sandy said, we started off with a 10-year-old, a batch strength. Then we moved at the same time. We brought this out. We moved to a 12, didn't we?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. And this is a limited 15-year-old because we're in one of those situations. We don't have lashings of stock of whiskey. We are building up the stock, and this is a prime example of those great casks that are deemed to be able to carry on to 15 years old to produce a 15, and we'll have casks sitting there now which ultimately in maybe a year and a half might become an 18.
Yeah, that's kind of where we're looking towards, Gordon, if I'm honest with you. That's the next stage. I think Tamdhu 17-year-old is a phenomenal whiskey. That's what we've been doing an awful lot in single casks around this 17-year-old age. And I've always said from shortly after actually they joined the site here that Tamdhu 17, 18, 19-year-old will really give Glengoyne 21-year-old a real run for its money. It really, really, really will.
Put him up.
Not that there's any rivalry.
No, of course. And that's a legendary whiskey. So you've got a absolutely. And I think Sorry, carry on.
No, I was going to say, you talk about legendary whiskey. Where we are with Tamdhu in terms of the awards that we've been winning for these whiskies that we've been sampling tonight. Tamdhu 15 was awarded gold out in the IWSC, if I remember rightly. One of the few whiskies, if I remember rightly, that was awarded gold at IWSC in terms of the Scotch whiskey side of things.
And the thing that I really like about Tamdhu that I've noticed in the last year and a half, 2 years, is that there's a lot of people who are now classing it as the sherry cask whiskey, and you think of the amount of people that use sherry is not massive to the level that we do, but to be in that sort of, sphere of, considered a real sherry cask sort of connoisseurial whiskey is really, really great for Tamdhu. And it's absolutely where we should be as a brand, which is great because we do understand the maturation and we do understand the quality of casks that are needed and the spirit that are produced to produce such a great whiskey.
That's where I say that John and Emma do a phenomenal job because, ensuring that we're always getting that consistency, ensuring that we're always delivering. And we do look to try and, when it's another, non-age statement, to try and have a wee bit of variation amongst it, but also to try and make it better or, have it as a better whiskey so that we're always improving. And if you think, where you start on that rung of the ladders, How high up you are in the first place makes it even more difficult to take another step up that ladder as you go along. And it does make John and Emma's job even more difficult.
Yeah.
Because I'm then actually, being a bit harsher and being a bit more selective and saying, no, that's not good enough this time round. I'll be back and start again this time. So it does give them a tough gig. Listen, cheers for this, 15.
Cheers.
On you go, Mr. Dallas.
Well, I've got a couple of. I'm doing a glass by glass comparison because this is the glass you got in your whiskey tasting kit. This is your sort of mini perfect dram Glencairn glass, and I have to say the aromas are very much concentrated in this glass here, and it's just wonderful. I'm going to get to some of the comments in a second, but can I just put my tuppence worth in? I was hearing on the radio about a psychologist yesterday was saying that in times of crisis, people go back to nostalgia. Some of the computer games are coming back, or the old games, the stuff that's getting quite popular on Netflix, and some of the classics. And I think when you're tasting the Tamdhu, especially the 15, that must take people back to the old Speyside whiskies, the sort of traditional heartland of what a Speyside was. And this is it. So in times of crisis, seek out a Tamdhu. And that's a psychologist telling you. Would that be far off the mark? This is old Speyside.
Not at all. And I remember, and you'll know, you remember this as well, Sandy. I remember a few people up at the Speyside Whiskey Festival when we could, and we'll talk about that, up at the Speyside Whiskey Festival going, this is what whiskey used to be like. This is what Speyside whiskies used to be like. And it's so good to see us producing it. And when Leonard bought the distillery and decided to produce a single malt, he wanted to produce that style.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I'm delighted to say that we've stuck with that and continue to have that as our journey. It's not that we're looking at alternatives or anything like that. Yeah. Leonard has always been very vocal in saying no, Tamdhu will be sherry, and it's a pleasure when you're actually producing something like this because people appreciate it. And I'm not saying people don't appreciate other whiskies because obviously they do. I mean, there's hundreds, thousands of whiskies out there now, but when you're getting the kind of loyalty that we get with the people that keep on coming back and giving us the great feedback that we get, and I'm not saying that every time it's great feedback. Sometimes there's people that don't.
No, that's the nature of it.
The nature of the beast. It's such that it's great having the versatile product of Scotch that has such a wide variation in terms of flavours.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. And I think, to the person who's seeking out that style of whiskey that's richer, longer, gives you a different experience to a bourbon cask. The key to this whiskey is, of course, those casks, but also, and the other thing, there was no debate. I remember when we decided we were bringing this out, there was no debate this was going to be at 46. It was always going to be at 46%.
Yeah. I'll be one of the first people to say, because I'm always honest with things as well. Initially, I was disappointed with this whiskey. When the samples come up right early doors, the samples come into the office and they'd been sitting in somebody's car overnight, actually. Come into the office. We didn't give them an awful sort of long period of time to warm up in the office to just come up to ambient temperature and like that. So when the sample bottle was cracked open, there wasn't much of a nose to it. There really wasn't. And I was really quite sceptical at that stage, thinking, what? But I've had mine sitting in the room here that I've been in for a couple of hours now. So it's certainly a warm temperature even. But it really releases the nose when it gets to that temperature I found with the 15. And it does need that.
Absolutely. But I mean, again, if you, with a drop of water, this whiskey will come alive as well, because it's at that slightly higher strength and more European oak in this whiskey than in the 12, I think would be my sort of guess. I think a little bit more richer style, a bit more first fill European oak, but it's a great balance again with the American oak sherry casks. And
talking about first fill there, Gordon, we also use some refill casks as well. So it's not always first fill that we're
no, absolutely.
Releases, so some refills kicking about there.
And at that point, let me not forget, just for people who are out there, that we do have a couple of whiskies in travel retail, and we do have a 14-year-old amber, which is again that combination of European and American oak, and we have the Grand Reserva, which is and that is all first fill, which makes that one a little bit.
Well, that was the question. the question at Dram by Dram, I think they're out there in Argentina as well. We're asking about the ratios between the European oak and American oak, but I don't think we really go into that level of detail, do we, with Tamdhu? They want to know exactly the levels.
We do have a note of them. I'm not going to lie about that. I've got the breakdown of all the different releases we've got in terms of the mix of American, European, and then refills, if there's any refills at all in there. Generally, the wider variation is around the American and European side of things. It's generally quite a small amount of refills that are going into any of our releases. And that, in turn, is one of the things which makes Tamdhu, I'm going to say, that a bit more expensive as well. Because if we're using first fill casks for a lot of this whiskies, then it's not a cheap gig for us. That we're talking about somewhere about 1,800 to 1,000 euros for one of our sherry butts. So
no, absolutely, absolutely, and Tamdhu is presented in a particular way. We do it. We don't cut any corners. Not suggesting anybody else does, but we do it the way we do it, and that's the way it presents. And it's just a fabulous product. And I love the bottle.
Gordon, we're not. We don't have to make up anything with regards to that, because it is what it is. If people would prefer to move to something that's the sherry finished or finished in some other type of cask, then by all means do so.
Absolutely.
You mentioned the 15. The 15 is a limited release. I think that's somewhere about, I'm going to say, about 3,000 cases, if I remember rightly.
And the other thing,
boys,
certainly.
No, I just had a question about who decides the ages. Thanks, Yvonne. Why 15? I know it's a question you maybe get, but why?
Well, we look at what we've got going on maturing. So, for instance, I've got a range of samples sitting in the office that were drawn last Wednesday or Tuesday or Wednesday by the warehouse team, actually. So with three of the guys in one of the warehouses, selecting somewhere about 20 different casks, ranging from 16s to 18-year-olds. And that was for us to have a wee look at to assess what the quality and the nose, and I've only been at the stage of nosing it so far. I was doing that this morning. And some of them, again, I don't beat about bullshit, yeah. Some of them have, the bottles were all standing upright. Some of them I've knocked down saying, no, that's not where my nose is today, that's for sure. And out of about the 21 or 22 samples, I think there's about 8 or 9 that I'll be going to tomorrow again to actually look at them again and actually sample in terms of my taste. So we're looking at what's going on during the maturation process, not just a case of sling it into the cask and let's go back to it after 18 years or 20 years or 21 years. We're taking samples there, and as well as myself looking at that, John Glass and Emma down in Broxburn are doing the same thing.
So and absolutely, that's the point. So when we're looking at, we will look at a lot of things. We'll look at the first fills of those both oak types. We'll look at the refills. There's also the other element which we haven't really touched on is the cask sizes. You get hogsheads, you get butts, you get puncheons. After 12, 15 years in a hogshead, you get a very different whiskey than you would in a butt.
Yeah, in terms of the surface area that's presented to the liquid, you've got a different stage of maturation going on in those sizes of casks as well, Gordon. So the interaction with the wood and again, we've got some casks in here, not for Tamdhu specifically, but they're palletized. All our Tamdhu that's used for a single malt is all in traditional warehouses and rack warehouses.
God, that 15 is fabulous.
We're presenting the maximum surface area of the wood to the liquid, so that we're enhancing that maturation and getting all we can out of the wood there as well. Because we want to improve the spirit quality.
And just to say to anybody out there who wants to know more about casks, you can watch Sandy and I on a video that we did a couple of years ago, which I think is, we're very proud of this video. I think it's a video that really explains our cask journey from a tree being cut down in Spain to arriving at Tamdhu 6 years later. I mean, it shows you the whole journey of both that American oak that's imported into Spain in logs or a tree being cut down in Spain and the process that those casks go through. So just have a look on the Tamdhu YouTube channel or on the website under Our Craft.
It's brilliant. Brian Shaw is going to take you, Sandy, in a week or two up to see the salmon spawning in the burn above the fish pass.
Great. Thanks, Brian.
And
Brian thankfully looks after our fish pass for us. He's the salmon fisheries board, so absolutely phenomenal knowledge and knows the area at the back of his hand as well.
Yeah, very
We
good.
don't have time. Not time for a big story. Tom Mack says, "Hi, Tamdhu team. Can you remember a couple of years ago when you blocked our military white van after one of our boys picked up on your security cameras on a kayaking trip? We ended up getting a tour with you. Tell that story," says Tom Mack.
Yes, we actually called the police during that occasion, locked their van in, and it turned out it was some army guys that were up in manoeuvres. So great for keeping in touch for a start. So thanks for that. But yeah, I got an absolute slagging off all the guys that worked at the distillery because I was so frustrated. And then the next thing we were taking them round and giving them drams.
That's brilliant. That is fantastic. That is fantastic.
Robert Hall says the 15 is amazing. Deep dark fruits, marzipan sweetness. Joe Lawson talks of mocha as well in there and crystallized ginger. So lots of lovely comments and a couple of questions. Any plans to experiment with different sherries? Says Johnny Allen.
Thus far, no. Is that kind of simple, direct answer to that?
I think you can take from what we said over that there's not going to be a peated PX release in the coming few years. So no, I think what's really important with Tamdhu is we are still building it, and we want to be doing what we're doing now really, really well as we are at the moment, and that's the whole point: is focus on the maturation that we're really good at, and we don't need to do anything different. It's so good the way it is.
We're quite exclusive in terms of the volume that we're producing, the volume that's actually going into sherry casks. We're not about volume.
No.
And as far as I'm aware, unless the business has decided otherwise, there's not an intention to. It's not all about volume; it's about quality.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we produce consistent quality, and the awards that we're winning, actually prove that to us. The feedback we get from the people out there that are enjoying the drams even tonight is important to us because that's telling us that we're doing the job right.
Yeah,
we
absolutely.
know that the liquid we've got sells, and it's not again about let's increase the price because we know it sells. I still think we're reasonable in comparison to competitor brands.
Absolutely, and for me, a prime example of that, is something like the Dalby Alley, which we bring out every year at the Spirit of Speyside Festival. Which let's hope it's going to happen next year, and we can get some of you up at the distillery. Would be great. So if you've never done that, hopefully it's going to happen next year. But we release the Dalby Alley Dram there every year. We've gone from batch 1, 2, and 3, and they're really popular. 1,000 bottles, and they disappear very quickly. But what I love about that is people there isn't like another whiskey out there on the market like that. And that's where I really love what we do in terms of just little runs of great quality whiskey.
I mean, the Dalby Alley Dram, we're talking about it. It's a great story. What we've done with that. As you say, batch 3 or release 3 was actually all online this year, obviously, because the festival wasn't on.
Yeah, and disappeared really quickly.
It's actually the quickest it's sold out. Which is bizarre.
Oh, it's amazing.
It also gives me a lot of confidence that the consumers out there know that the liquid is good quality.
Oh, yeah.
And the brand is actually getting a bit more recognised as well.
Absolutely.
Which is where we want to be. And listen, it's a Tamdhu journey. Whether that's a journey from Spain to Speyside or just a journey worldwide in terms of getting the brand out there. And we're still at the start of that journey. We are. The uptake that we're seeing from people already in terms of the loyalty that we've got and is just absolutely phenomenal. I love it. And as I say, I treat a lot of the people out there as friends.
I love it too, but I need to keep us moving on.
Okay, well, I'm a wee bit behind. Just I haven't finished my 50. I poured myself a big dram of 15.
You always pour yourself a big dram, Sandy. You're allowed to. You make it. So let's have a little bit of this new batch strength number 5. So this is the 5th release in the series, and they've all been a variation on a theme, I think is the best way to describe it. And firstly, I get almost the most questions I get, Sandy, and you can help explain this. What on earth does batch strength mean?
Well, again, I'm delighted, that there's no hidden agenda with this. Again, we're completely open and honest with it. Batch strength is not cask strength. It's the first thing I'm going to say. So it's not a cask strength whiskey. This is a whiskey that John and the team down in Broxburn have taken from the cask and blended a few different casks together, and then added some water and reduced the strength down to the strength that's in the bottle. So we're talking 59.6, 59.8, I should say.
This one's a higher strength.
Yeah. So we are up at that typical strength of casked whiskies. We're not saying it's not up there in terms of strength, but we cannot call it a cask strength whiskey because we have added water to this. So we're completely open, completely honest. It's a batch strength whiskey. And every release thus far, there's been variations in terms of the strength, there's been variations in terms of the cask ratios. And actually, again, this year when John and Emma sent up the samples to us, the hardest one that we've actually nosed and tasted and authorised for bottling, I think, was batch 3, where it took quite a few attempts, or that's not fair to say attempts, a few samples to be sent up to us at Tamdhu before we were happy with it in terms of putting that forward for bottling. Batch 5, there was one that was a complete standout to us, sample number, and after the fact I've got it set beside us at sample number 472. And that's just a reference number. It's not getting any significance for me anyway, that's for sure.
What Sandy hasn't shown you, he's actually got buckets of that sample behind the camera. It's just got two small glass bottles to show. So batch strength 5, 59.8 is this? It is 59.8.
It's just a lovely way it pours as well.
It's beautifully thick whiskey. This is fantastic. And
I love that batch pouring out that.
Beautiful legs on it, beautiful thickness to it. It's effectively cask strength, but it's not. We've added a drop of water, but for all intents and purposes, it's right up there as a cask strength whiskey. Now,
a lot of folk come back to us, Gordon, and again, as a non-aged whiskey, a lot of folk ask the questions. It can't be that old if it's up at 59%. We typically fill the cask here now is 63.5% in terms of our cask filling. So the question would come back, oh well, it's obviously not that old. It's not been sitting maturing for particularly long. If you're putting it in a bottle at 59.8, bearing in mind you've already added water to it as well.
Yeah.
So the response to that is, and again, there's nothing to hide here. Up until about 3 years ago, we were actually filling the cask at 68%. So keep that in mind in terms of the reduction in terms of the alcohol strength. Process. No, we're actually still talking about some whiskey in here that's of a decent age.
Yeah, absolutely, and the color also shows you it's not a young whiskey, natural color as well. And so what I love about this is that for me there is a little bit of a difference. There's a little bit more of that lighter style in this. There's for me there's quite American oak heavy, I think, in this whiskey. But I love the balance of. Sorry.
I'm just saying, interesting, yeah.
I think there's a little bit more American oak in this. But I mean, I love this whiskey. I absolutely think I've loved all the batch strengths for sure. But I think it's very fruity, very. It's got a real. And the other thing that 59.8 noses of about 50. No,
it's not filth. You would never think that, Gordon.
No.
What about the palate? Do any of you guys really truthfully think that needs water to bring it down?
I haven't tasted it yet. I'm about to.
I'm going to try it, but no, not really. I got a lovely bit of orange, Sandy. When I'm nosing it, lovely orangey note to it.
When we put out batch one was 58 was batch one, actually. I always remember that one. And I remember starting to drink it at different events and things like that. And I always added a wee drop of water to it. And through time, my palate has adjusted that it actually doesn't need water at that strength. And it's not a fiery whiskey. It's not giving you that water. That's strong,
Juicy. I find it lovely.
Do you know what I'm getting? I'm getting Cranachan.
Okay. Well, I get the sort of butterscotch, toffee popcorn is really what I get.
Oh yeah, butterkisk.
Oh, Joe Lawson's getting alcoholic orange and ginger lemonade marmalade.
Brand name them. But yeah, that's what I get.
Jared said no water needed. We've just the batch 5 is released and already gold at the Spirits Business Luxury Scotch Whisky Masters. Bang!
Yeah. So every time that we, in fact, if there's any of the Tamdhu staff actually watching this. Up until semi-recently, we used to actually buy sweeties. We used to buy a box of celebrations for everybody when we won an award, or a good award, you know, a gold award or something like that. And I'm now probably about 6 or 7 boxes of sweeties behind for all the different awards we've won this year. So that 8 kilograms that I lost earlier on, behind me to be back on again soon.
Nikki Hubbard, how are you doing? Honeycomb. And Ian is saying,
Yeah. Cranachan is a Scottish dessert of basically berries, oats, cream, and meringue, or cream oats, and
summer berries.
Sort of raspberries, but I just get that sort of lightness, fruitiness. It's a bit citrusy. Love it, absolutely love it. And I wouldn't add. Not suggesting you shouldn't, but I wouldn't add water to this.
Well, I looked up my own tasting notes for this earlier on today for when I sampled it. Oh, I'm just trying to think. It was bottled in July. I think I was sampling it back in. In fact, we've got a date on it. Actually, I think is it? May. So this was sampled or actually prepared back in May, early May this year.
God, that's so good.
And I looked up my own tasting notes. So it's funny you saying that in terms of the I've got sweet summer fruits. There's the notes that I had at the time. That was the notes I put down to on at the time. Red apples and sweet summer fruits.
I get a maltiness, a sort of toasted, just a biscuity note, almost oaty, like a hobnob.
Toasted oats from Jane Summers, a toasted hot knob with a bit of heat on it as well. Lots of comments about tours, Sandy, from Vaughn, Chris, Derek, all asking about tours at Tamdhu. Only open for 2 days in the year. Really? Is that right? When it goes back to normal? Will we do any extras?
Well, let's hope we do get back to normal. That's the first thing I'll say. But yes, generally 2 or 3 days at, as Gordon and Das mentioned earlier there, the Speyside Whisky Festival generally at the start of May or tail end of April each year. And we get great support in terms of the team at Glengoyne come up. In fact, obviously Gordon, the 2 Gordons come up during that time as well. And Joanne comes up as well usually for that. And what we have then is quite an intense period where there's lots of other events going on in Speyside, so it's well worth a visit if you're not even just.
Can I just say, Sandy, you're quite a hard taskmaster because we had to come up a few months beforehand and take you round your own distillery and take you, again, and then on the day, Gordon, Sandy was like, right, I'm very busy. There's lots of tours going on. Just I might pop up for a minute or 2 at the end just to say thanks to people for a minute or 2. He pops out before the warehouses and speaks for about 20 minutes. So, which is hugely appreciated, Sandy. He didn't do it to one tour. He did all the tours. So I don't know how you worked and did the tours at the same time. But it's a great fun as well.
It's the only chance that we've got our doors open here. So I do feel it's quite important to interact with the people. These are the guys and girls that are enjoying our product. So if you can take 10 minutes out of your day to spend, or 20 minutes out of your day to spend time with a group
absolutely.
You get to know them, and that to me is part of what the enjoyment of being here at Tamdhu is actually meeting the people that we get from all around the world. That actually, time and time again, a lot of times we get the same people coming back the following year or 2 years later. And I remember them because I've met them. They remember me. They remember Gordon. They remember the guys on site here as well because we've got great camaraderie.
Yeah, and the guys on site are unforgettable. So they're a fantastic team.
My own question was, Sandy, how are the guys? How is Sean the Cooper? How is Eugene? How are the boys?
It's been an interesting time. Let's face it. We're extremely fortunate in the industry we work in for a start. In terms of that we've been able to continue working. Again, there's a lot of people in a lot worse situations than us. Hopefully those situations improve, particularly for the hospitality trade. They're going through a really, really tough time. And let's face it, we're relying on that trade as part of our business. So here's hoping that's in the near to medium future. But the team here, we're lucky. We've got 10 houses here on site. We've got 7 of us, soon to be 8 of us, hopefully staying on site. And that allows us to have a bit of fun and camaraderie on site and made it an awful lot easier during the lockdown period because well, we're effectively like a wee bubble here anyway, in
Yeah.
terms of our remoteness geographically. So we're quite fortunate that way. But the
And just-
guys are all doing well.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. And just on that point that you mentioned there, Sandy, about the hospitality trade, it's a small thing, but I just want to mention it. Obviously, the whiskies tonight are available from your local retailers, are available from us as well. But every bottle that is bought from us, we donate £1 to the Ben charity, which is supporting hospitality at the moment through this difficult time. And that's just something to be aware of. So just something I wanted to let you know. And all, the Bat Strength 5 is available on the website, as are the others. So should you wish to purchase a bottle, you'll be supporting them in a very small way, but every little bit helps. So,
and Elizabeth was asking about, she loves the amber. We talked about the travel retail. Will that be available, since we can't really travel at the moment? Will that be put out onto the sort of shelves, or how did you get a hold of that? And can I just say, before you answer that, Sandy, Caroline Gibson there, who I worked side by side with at
Caroline,
the Edinburgh Airport. Again, it must be tough times for the staff there. She was fantastic, Caroline. How are you doing? It was great taking me under your wing at Edinburgh Airport and trying to push
that's appropriate, Gordon, under the wing.
Yes. I was under the wing drinking the amber, but yeah, hello there to I really feel for the staff as well at the duty-free retail outlets and all the airports. But I don't know if the travel retail range will be available. I suspect not.
Yeah.
As far as I'm led to believe, there's not an intention to bring the amber and the Grand Reserva back into our online sales. Yeah. Obviously, the Edinburgh Airport single cask, which, again, Caroline, nice to get a wee catch up with you there on the stream tonight, because I know Caroline as well and spent a wee bit of time for the launch of the Edinburgh Airport cask down there.
Hi, Caroline, as well. I know you.
That was a classic.
Because Gordon's always going through the airport, going to jet off to these sunny places.
I was there for a month.
But the Edinburgh Airport single cask is available online on the Tamdhu website. We brought that back. And I don't think it's perhaps treading any toes. I think there's possibly similar situation might arise with the Heathrow Airport cask as well. And as far as I'm led to believe, I think we've still got a bottle of Tamdhu 50. If anybody's feeling particularly wealthy or won the lottery with the Euro Millions, buy a ticket for tomorrow night.
Put me down for it. I'm in.
I won the lottery last night.
£10. Can you really? That's what you're going to do. Some renovations to the sauna with that?
Oh yes, I'll get a new set of darts. Oh, one dart.
So look, I mean, I'm loving this Bat Strength 5. I think it's a great sort of thoughts of a great addition to that wonderful range of bat strengths, which have just been all individual. Is there any feedback
coming in, guys, in terms of people doing a comparison with 1, 2, 3, or 4?
You've had a question. You've had a question. You did predict the question. Jane's asked you the question between batch 1 and batch 5. What's your favourite there? And
I'll answer that, and I'll say I don't know. I genuinely don't know, and that's not me doing a political answer or politically correct answer on slopey shoulders. I've never actually sat down with the 5 releases, or the 4 even previously, and done a blind tasting across all 4 of them to then say, or 5 of them now, to say, yeah, this is my favourite.
And doing it blind.
I should do it.
Mental note: next tasting at Sauna Batch Strengths. Okay, that's we did have a question. I was sorry, that's why I paused. We had a question about the type of barley that Tamdhu uses.
We're still on 2019 crop, so the barley was cut last harvest time, all the September time, and the variety we use at the moment is called Laureate. Our early indications thus far for the 2020 harvest is that the crop's been good. Harvest has worked well. The supplier we use is Simpson's Malt down in Berwick-upon-Tweed, and they're actually looking quite interestingly to put a planning application in to build a maltings up here in Speyside. So their whole business is obviously improving, or whether they're deciding to close in another maltings, I'm not sure. But they've obviously seen the growth in the Scotch sector. Some other distilleries in the area have expanded production. And they're planning all being well and having a maltings up here.
I mean, I remember when I was at a certain distillery in Japan, seeing some Simpson malt in Japan. So that just shows you that they're doing it all over the world. So,
and that's another family-owned business as well, which is a great story, a great success.
Absolutely right. That's fantastic. Yeah, but I think the whole range just stacks up as a wonderful sherry experience, and the 12, as we said, that sort of approachable, very fruity style. The 15, a little bit more of that richer style, a little bit more of that sort of grip that comes through, and the batch strength is 5 is just fabulous, like they've all been, like they have all been.
I think we've done this tasting in the right order tonight, because this is to me is the dram that I would want to finish off the evening with. The 12, 15 in the batch, definitely.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And can I just say, with a lovely comment there from Ian, says, great idea on the batch strength tasting, Mr. Dallas. Can we all join? And I think that's not a bad. Dougie says, I'm in. And I have just heard it from, head office have said, I can do the show from Spain. I was meant to be there tonight. They said,
are you allowed to take 2 other guests with you?
No, it's a solo gig. Gordon Dallas can be in Spain doing that gig. So that could be a potential for the future.
You may go to Spain. You may never get back there. You might be locked down in Spain. No, it's not.
There's places you could be stuck, and it would shut us down to the ground as well, Gordon. So.
That's very true.
I thought it was a threat for a second, Andy. It was threat. Right.
That's very true.
One of the things I'd like to just touch on very, very briefly at the tail end here, I don't know what the time is. I don't bother.
So carry on.
Time. But one of the things I would love it if we could get people that as yet maybe haven't joined up to the Tamdhu Members Club. We are looking at a potential quite exciting opportunity coming up in the next few months in terms of involving people from that club in some of our other releases. So I would encourage, if you're not a member of the Tamdhu Members Club, to go online. It doesn't cost you anything. Stick your details in. It gives you, I'm not going to say an awful lot of benefits at the moment, but we're looking at making improvements to that. But the thing it does give you is early notification of when we're doing any new releases. So I would hate anybody missing out on anything if there's something that they're particularly interested in. But we are looking to involve people from that group in some of our forthcoming expressions. So
yes. So what I would say is, just go onto the website and there's a join our club tab, and just doesn't cost you anything. Just join up, and you can hear from us. And we are looking at developing that as we move forward as a brand. So that's very exciting. So we would love you to sign up for that. Anything else to add, gentlemen, as we trundle towards an hour and 15 minutes?
Is that how long we've been on for already? Gosh.
Yeah, absolutely.
No. This is
unbelievable. It's like when Gordon and I do a podcast, the time just flies by.
Yeah.
Unfortunately for the people that are listening, it doesn't quite fly by as quickly. But hey,
they can always fast forward.
Exactly. Yeah, get to the end.
The latest episode just out.
Latest episode. Yeah, absolutely right. Absolutely right.
Lots of lovely comments. I'm sorry I never got to all the comments tonight, but I think we got the gist of it there. Robert Hall says, I've just joined up there. He's just done that, Sandy.
Thank you.
Well done.
I'll just throw in there. That wasn't me trying to do a big marketing piece or anything like that. If you don't want to do it, don't do it. I mean, I'm not going to lose any sleep over it, and my bonus isn't dependent upon it, so don't worry about it too much.
Yeah. No, absolutely. We just want you to ultimately enjoy your Tamdhu experience, whether that's buying a bottle, being a member of the club, coming to see us at the Spirit of Speyside, whatever it may be. We just want to produce great whiskey and make you feel part of the Tamdhu family.
That's what it comes down to. I mean, I as I said before, I love the fact that we've got folk all over the world, absolutely all over the world.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I travel all over the world generally, and I mean, I did a week in China. The love for the whiskey was great. You go to other parts of the world, everybody loves the whiskey. It's great. Hard to find sometimes, but when you find it, it's great to get there. So it's been great. I've had a great evening. Anything to add, Sandy?
No, just to say for everybody to stay safe, and hopefully
let's hope
this comes sometime soon. This is the thing I would really love, that everybody's hale and hearty and healthy.
Let's hope this. Gordon Dallas has disappeared. Oh, he's got to put some more money in the meter. He's always been having Wi-Fi issues, and
the meter's going off the sauna.
the sauna's taken all the power. But no, it's been a great evening, Sandy. Pleasure to see you, my friend.
No, my pleasure as well to catch up with as many people and all our friends.
Cheers, everybody.
The wider world. Enjoy your Tamdhu, folks.
Yeah, enjoy your Tamdhu, and everybody, please stay safe and keep in touch with us. We love to hear what you're up to, whether it's on Facebook.
Let us know what you think.
Okay, and we hope you've enjoyed it. Cheers. Thank you very much. Good night.
Good to see you.
Cheers, Andy. Bye.
Sometime soon. Cheers.
I hope to be up.